Ietsénhaienhs Jessica Lazare presented to the federal government Standing Committee on Bill C-21 the proposed federal legislation to make amendments to the Criminal Code, the Firearms Act, and other federal legislation in relation to gun control and firearms. The proposed legislation aims to add additional prohibitions to the existing legislation, significantly impacting our people. Ietsénhaienhs Lazare presented Kahnawake's position in Ottawa.
I am Chief Jessica Lazare of the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake. I'm happy to be here. I'm here to present our position on your proposed bill. We cannot overemphasize how integral hunting and harvesting is to our identity, and today I will present examples of how this bill will affect the ability to express that. There are potential repercussions on our rights to carry out a deeply rooted cultural practice which is already restricted with the existing framework. I will also call in the lack of consultation with Indigenous communities and the effects of this deficiency in creating your bill. Harvesting is deeply woven into the Kanien'kehá:ka Mohawk culture and the fabric of who we are. As Ungwehue, meaning original people, we have inherent practices that we've been engaging in since time immemorial. These practices are deeply ingrained in our ceremonies. They stem from inherent roles and responsibilities that are integrated into who we are from a generational and family level from birth. So this was my first time speaking in front of a standing committee for any type of bill. I have to say it was an extremely interesting experience. I was given the opportunity to speak in front of the standing committee on Bill C-21. So some of the things that I spoke on was the potential impacts for hunting and harvesting rights for Kahnawake as well as those from the Iroquois caucus. I wanted to, bring to the attention of those creating legislation that the realities that we face as Ungwehue are often overlooked, and that the lack of consultation was an extremely disappointment from the drafting of this bill. It definitely affects us at many levels, and I wanted that to be clear to all of those who are trying to work on this bill. In our culture, we are taught to balance the roles and responsibilities as humans with those of the other living beings here on Mother Earth. All this inherent knowledge and understanding is what we carry day to day. This understanding of our roles, responsibilities, and the respect for the cycle of life is what makes us who we are as Ungwehue. This cycle and balance has been interrupted by colonization, which has also established an evolution of our practices, from bows and arrows to firearms, in order to fulfill our obligations in sustaining that balance. Losing culture through restrictions of our rights is not a theoretical. This loss has been lived in real time by me and my family, as well as my community and those of my sister communities of the Iroquois caucus. The restrictions on our rights under the current licensing structure are already unacceptable, and further restrictions could be fatal to our cultural practices. This bill and its amendments will further limit the potential for our families to harvest for sustenance during each crucial harvesting cycle. It will impact both our hunting methods and our success rate. When you start to interfere with that success, you interfere with food security and how that person can provide sustenance to their communities and families. The realities of Indigenous people who travel for sustenance harvesting with their firearms are being overlooked due to the lack of consultation. Your government needs to take the time to ensure that there is recognition and acknowledgements made to reflect our Indigenous rights and our realities. There is no carve-out in Bill C-21 for the exercise of our inherent jurisdiction rights, nor was any consultation carried out to solicit our input. There is no recognition of the way existing prohibitions and licensing already limit and have adverse impacts on our rights, and no attempt made to help us determine which specifications or models need to be protected, ensuring that there is a balance between safety and sustenance. With this, the Iroquois caucus requests a meeting with the committee. It is for the Kanien'kehá:ka of Kahnawake, not for Canada, to decide what is fitting for our people. We have entrusted enforcement to the Kahnawake peacekeepers. I'd also like to point out that this bill will place an administrative burden on our peacekeepers who already face chronic underfunding, understaffing, and intransigence regarding our proposals for culturally appropriate firearm control. Concurrently, the lack of in-depth and comprehensive consultation with Indigenous communities is demonstrated in the incoherence and inconsistency of this bill, the proposed amendments therein, and the lack of acknowledgement on the rights of Indigenous peoples. So you see, when you talk about firearms as objects, you forget that it's the person holding it that makes it either a tool for sustenance or a weapon. We ask that you address the real underlying problems that cause gun violence, not further restrict Indigenous peoples from carrying out their lives in a sustainable, ceremonial, and generational way.
The MCK is continuing to work on Bill C-21 and the impacts it may have on our hunting and harvesting rights, as well as our heritage and culture. The lack of consultation with Kahnawake and other Indigenous communities is disconcerting, and the government needs to properly engage before this bill is passed into law. The MCK will provide the community with updates as they become available.